In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about the White Sox and the Cubs playing good baseball, talking about Bears, minicamp, and more. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is over, unfortunately, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. I'm not as, let's just say I'm not quite as mad as Nico Horner or Craig Counsell, but I'm still kind of steamed about what happened because I don't know if you saw the clip right when Horner got ejected. Did you see that?
I didn't. I went to the movies today, so the game was like just over when I was coming out, so I have not caught up on today's game yet.
Well, once we get to our Cubs segment later, you're going to want to watch that clip because it is one of the worst strike three calls I've ever seen. And then Nico got tossed, and then Craig got tossed. And all Nico said was, "You're having a bad day." The umpire immediately tossed him. It was a fucking joke. It was really bad. So you're going to want to watch that clip. Otherwise, I'm great. Everything's great. Everything is just peachy.
So we have a third mic today. Alex, would you like to make the introduction?
Yes, I would. We are welcoming back to the Swirsky Show our good friend Eric Nemchak. I have known him for a very, very long time. Good personal friend. It was just his birthday this past week, so happy belated birthday again. Eric is a longtime Sky season ticket holder. He also is a contributor for Swish Appeal, right? Things WNBA, and we are having him on to talk a little bit about the Chicago Sky. And the timing of this is actually pretty good because the Sky just played their first ever game at the United Center this weekend, and Eric was there up close and personal like he has been for many years. So, Eric, my man, welcome back to the show.
Well, I would argue that the timing is actually pretty bad because that was a very bad game. But thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for the belated birthday wishes again. Yeah, thank you for letting me talk some Sky Hoops with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we'll lead off with is, again, we're going to reference a game that ended up being pretty tough in the scorebook, but it was still a historic day for the Sky. They played Indy at the United Center, and you were there sitting courtside. It looked like a pretty great crowd. So I guess before we get into the team and the goods and the bads, I just wanted to ask, like, what was that experience like at the United Center? Obviously, Wintrust is very nice. I've been to a few games there with you, but the United Center is the United Center. Tell us what it was like. What was the crowd like? What was the atmosphere like? What was it like for you sitting there?
It was amazing, to be honest with you. There's really no comparison between Wintrust Arena. All due respect to the people who maintain and work at that arena, but the United Center is a completely different level. I want to say they announced the crowd of about 19,000 people. I'm not sure if that was actual attendance or just number of tickets sold, but whenever I go to the United Center, Alex, I don't know about you. I'm used to sitting up in the 300 level where
Yep.
I need the binoculars to see the players. I'm just looking at the scoreboard at the jumbotron rather than the court. So to be sitting courtside there was honestly an unbelievable experience. Part of the courtside season ticket package that I have is that we get complimentary food and beverage at Wintrust Arena. That carried over to the United Center, so that was cool. And they had like several different private lounges in that area with like intimate lighting and professional servers and things like that. And it was really awesome. It was really awesome. Everyone there is super professional, super good at what they do. Honestly, felt like a VIP, man. And then when I walked out onto the court, when I was sitting courtside. Unlike Wintrust, there's only one row of courtside seats. It goes all the way down at the United Center. So it was literally just me, just me in the court. And it was incredible. Just the atmosphere, given that they were playing Indiana, and Indiana fans obviously travel pretty well to Chicago now. It wasn't exclusively Sky fans, but uh, everyone there was really hyped to be there. And like you said, it was a historical moment because this is the first WNBA game to ever be played at the United Center, and it's not going to be the last. So just to be there and just to say, like, yeah, I was a part of this. I was there, front row. Couldn't get any better seats than that. It was honestly a dream come true because, like I said before, not used to sitting that close at the United Center. So yeah, it was pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean, I've only sat up close at the United Center a few times. Both of those are for Blackhawks games. I was up by not quite against the glass, but a few rows up from it. But for a Bulls game, I think I sat in the 200 level once or twice. Every other Bulls game I've been to has always been in the 300 level. So yes, to what you were alluding to before, most of my time at the United Center, whether it was a Bulls game or a Blackhawks game, has been way up there. So I bet that was really cool. And obviously, if I were sitting there, one of the things I would be thinking about is like, wow, I am standing on hallowed ground. Like this is where Blackhawks won Stanley Cups. This is where Michael Jordan won NBA championships. Like that would be what would get me more than anything personally if I were able to sit up there. But, going back to what you were talking about the crowd, because I saw, some of the video, the pictures of the crowd, and it looked almost full there. If you said 19,000, usually that arena sits 21,000, so that is not far off from a sellout. Now, I guess a question I would have for you is, if Caitlin Clark was playing, do you think that it would sell out? Like, do you think more people would get last minute tickets? And do you think it would be even bigger deal there? I would assume so.
Yes, I do think so. I think the absence of Caitlin Clark, who suffered a quad injury a couple weeks ago, that was kind of hanging over the atmosphere of the game. But and like I said, Indiana fans, ever since Clark was drafted there and kind of exploded in popularity, they do travel very well. They invade Wintrust Arena whenever they come play Chicago, and it's all sports rivalry stuff. But
Yep.
yeah, that's the one thing that I think was keeping this from truly exploding. But I mean, you also got to consider this game was on national TV as well. So a WNBA
Right.
game on national TV, was it CBS or was it ABC? I think it was CBS. That doesn't happen all the time. And just the fact that I would argue that even though Clark was not playing, they still drew a crowd of 19,000. That's a really good sign
Yeah.
because I think maybe somewhat of an incorrect but naive narrative is that, the WNBA's recent surge in popularity is because of Caitlin Clark. A large part of it is due to Caitlin Clark, but I mean, also the games are on TV more often. The players are getting paid more often. The players have a much larger social media presence than ever, which in this day and age is absolutely huge when you're trying to grow anything.
Hmm.
So just to have that game being played in that environment on that stage, and then without the proverbial golden goose, but still having that game happening, it's a testament to all these years of what the WNBA has been working for.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the Sky themselves. Obviously, it was a really rough game last night, and we did just get the news about an hour or so ago about Vandersloot and that horrific injury that she suffered. Obviously, that had to be pretty deflating to everybody there. A longtime Sky legend. How did that feel? And is this something that you think is going to linger over the team, or are they going to be kind of motivated to, go forward even without one of their great leaders?
That's a good question. Yes, to what you initially said, it was very deflating. In fact, that's something I have in my little notes here. The air just kind of got taken out of the building, and you could see it got taken out of the team too. Vandersloot, 36 years old, like you said. She spent a couple years in New York after winning a championship in Chicago, but then she ended up coming back for this season. She pretty much is the Chicago Sky in terms of franchise
Hmm.
players, and particularly as their point guard. Arguably, inarguably, I should say, one of the best point guards in WNBA history. Her leadership is incredible, up there on the assists leaderboards, but just one of those players who keeps everybody together. And I hate to use the term makes her teammates better, but she makes things easier for her teammates, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
and it happened early in the game. And it was one of those things where it's like, yikes, that was a non-contact knee injury, and she was down for a while, and everybody looked really concerned. This really sucks. So that was a problem, and it just seemed like the team never really recovered from that. I don't think there are really any excuses for scoring 52 points and committing more turnovers than made shots, but they just didn't look prepared to play without her. Their backup point guard Mariah Jefferson is also injured. They drafted a rookie guard in Haley Van Lith, but she hasn't really gotten to play much. She was kind of thrown into the fire after Sloot got injured. But yeah, it's going to be tough going forward because one, we don't know what Jefferson's health looks like moving forward. She's a competent veteran player, but she's had injury problems of herself, of her own, I should say, throughout her career. And Van Lith is more of a scoring guard, more of a combo guard than a pure point guard like Vandersloot. And she's a rookie. Like, point guard is the hardest position in the WNBA to learn, to pick up. And it's a huge jump, physically speaking, from college to the WNBA. So I don't know what they're going to do, obviously. What they can do is they could sign somebody to a hardship contract, which is basically if two or more players are unable to play, they can sign a player off of for free agency for as long as both of those people are out. So as long as Vandersloot and Jefferson are out, they could technically sign somebody else. But the problem with that is it's almost the middle of June already. Like, pickings are getting slim. People have made other commitments. People are signed to other teams. It's not as simple as just saying, okay, we're going to sign some person off their couch and they're going to come start at point guard and play 30 minutes for our team. So it's going to be really difficult. I think not even from a statistical perspective, just like I said, that leadership, because I don't know if you remember last year, this guy didn't really have that go-to leader, that vocal leader. And they started decently, but towards the end of the season, especially after Angel Reese got injured, things just really snowballed and things got out of hand there. I'm concerned that something like that is going to happen now. They do have more veterans than they did last season. They do have some kind of a veteran infrastructure, but without Vandersloot running the show on the court, I'm not really sure what the success is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always tough to lose a player like that, even in an advanced age. Bringing that leadership is always an important part of professional sports, especially now. So I guess another question I have for you is Angel Reese. The year she's having so far, what do you make of it? Do you see things changing? What is your overall opinion on how that's gone?
It's been a mixed bag for Angel, I think. Both her and Camila Cardoso, and I want to lump them together because they were both taken in the first round of last year's WNBA draft. And the Sky were pretty much all in on making this like, this is our future right here. These two bigs.
They were the cornerstones.
Yes, the cornerstones. That's a good word for it. Neither of them, I think, have really shown the improvement that I would be looking for if I was a Sky fan. I am a Sky fan, but if I'm optimistic about the future, Reese's numbers, I think they've kind of diminished actually, and Cardoso's have kind of stagnated a little bit. Granted, they do have yet another first-year head coach in Tyler Marsh, and he wants to play a little bit differently than Teresa Weatherspoon did last season. I don't think Angel is being really spoon-fed the offensive opportunities that she was last season. Last year they'd leave her in lopsided games. They'd try to get her the ball when they were down 25 points or whatever, which I can't argue that. Like, they're trying to get her reps, developmental reps. There's no better way to learn than by doing. But this year, I think they're trying to use Angel as more of a facilitator. And she actually is a pretty good passer for a power forward, but she's not somebody who I think has the offensive skill at this point to have plays run specifically for her. She's not the type of player who you can say, okay, we're playing 4 out 1 end. We're going to get the ball to Angel in the post. We're going to let her go to work. That doesn't yield efficient offense for them. She's just an interesting player in terms of strengths and weaknesses. And right now, I think you're seeing the weaknesses because defenses are adjusting. They saw what you did last year. She's obviously a tremendous rebounder, but her offensive package is one that she's going to get her shot blocked a ton, especially by people who are larger defenders. So I think defenses are adjusting to the point where they're saying, okay, if Angel's got the ball, you just stick your hand straight up. And she's going to try to initiate contact, just stand your ground, and she's going to throw up a wild shot off the backboard and try and get her own rebound. So defenses have adjusted, and now Angel needs to adjust. Where is your counter move? Where is this development coming from in this past offseason? She did play in Unrivaled, which is the 3-on-3 league that made its inaugural season this past winter, and that was cool to see. But 3-on-3 is vastly different from 5-on-5, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
the time you're spending there is time that you're not spending, working with your personal trainer or working with the Sky coaches, working with the Sky development team. So I think it's been a little bit of a disappointment, to be honest with you. She's still driving the best offensive rebounding in the league. Same with Cardoso, to be honest. But I think there are going to be questions coming up like, okay, what is this developmental curve looking like? How much longer are the Sky going to be sticking with these two as their, like you said, cornerstones before they need to reevaluate things and say, okay, does one of them need to come off the bench? Does one of them need to get traded? That's probably not going to happen, but just hypothetically speaking, because obviously things aren't going well right now. And I'm not sure if I see a path for things to suddenly get 100% better.
Right. So it's going to take some work. It might, it's not going to be a switch, is what you're basically saying. You're not going to suddenly see a vast improvement. You might see progressive, but
and right now, Alex, it's still young. The season is still young. They're playing 44 games this year, which is the most the WNBA has ever played in a single season. So I'm not saying like it's time to panic or anything like that. These are still players who are just entering their second seasons. Like,
sure,
it's very rare to see a player come in and dominate the league right away. And like I said, it's a 13. It was 12 teams. Now they're 13. 13 team league. There are no secrets. Teams adjust very quickly. Coaches make adjustments very quickly. And when they've got entire off seasons to kind of scheme around these things, player weaknesses and things that they can take advantage of become very, very obvious. So it's just going to be on the Sky now to say, okay, how do we continue to develop these young players? How can we best complement these young players? And that's really where the Vandersloot injury really hits hard, because she is that player who, like I said, makes life easier for her teammates. She can run a team. She can get the ball where it needs to go. She makes the good decisions, the right decisions with the basketball. And for somebody who's like 6'7", like Cardoso, for instance, she's the one who can lob it up there where only she can get it. She's the one who can get her the ball when she's, making that timely cut where other people can't. And without Vandersloot on the court, things might get more difficult for these youngsters rather than easier.
So it's not quite an apples to apples comparison, but years ago when D Rose was hurt and Thibodeau was running the offense as through Joakim Noah as a point center with Angel Reese's, I mean, for a big player, she's a pretty decent passer. Is there a possibility they could do something drastic with Vandersloot out? Is trying something like that? And is that something that, WNBA teams will do, roughly 10 games into the season?
That's a good question. I think right now they're still kind of, first of all, it'd be difficult to do that with both Reese and Cardoso on the floor because neither of them are threats to score from beyond 15 feet from the hoop. So there's not a lot of floor spacing going on there. That's a good question though. I think you might see that from some teams who have better wing play and better guard play. Like for instance, the Liberty, who are killing it right now. They're playing 5-out offense, and they have two bigs in Jonquil Jones and Brianna Stewart, who are both very good passers for their respective positions. So the floor is wide open for them. Like there are backdoor cuts. There are open 3-point shots all over the place, like nobody's business. The Sky just don't have that kind of personnel, I fear. I think you would have to move one of them to the bench or at least stagger your lineups. The problem is they really only have one big who can shoot the 3-pointer, and that's rookie Maddie Westbeld. She has not really played that much yet either. So that's a really good point, honestly. I think you said dating back to the Thibodeau days where you were right. They're initiating a lot of their offense through Joakim Noah. Even that was different though. Like you said, kind of apples to oranges because Noah was playing center. Reese is playing power forward. They have kind of experimented with Reese at center for a little bit. That may be what they do. I don't know because like I've been saying, there is no in-house replacement for Vandersloot. There just isn't. So they might need to make some adjustments on the fly like this. And this is, to your point, this is going to be an early test for Tyler Marsh. This is his first year as a head coach. He's been dealt a horrific blow with injuries. we always say like a point guard is the extension of the coaching staff on the court, and well, the coaching staff just lost its extension. So how do they adjust? What kind of offensive nuances are they going to change? That would be, I think, that's an interesting idea what you proposed. That might be a little much for them because right now it's a lot of pick and roll, it's a lot of transition play. Reese is doing a little bit of initiating, but they're not just like, okay, Princeton set every single time. Angel, you get the ball at the top of the key, make the right decision every single time. Like they're not quite doing that. I think they want to play with more pace than that. So we'll see what happens. But that would be something I would want to consider if, like, for instance, another month into the season, things are going terribly. It's obvious that they need to, make some changes like that, maybe some personnel changes. They're going to want to be sellers at the trade deadline, maybe. Then I might think, okay, if we want to get the most out of Angel Reese in the future, then maybe kind of conform the offense around her passing a little bit more. But that's a good point.
So, Eric, before we let you go, I guess the last thing I wanted to ask is, what is a really bright spot that you've seen so far with this team? Whether it's a player, whether it's a system they're running, whatever it is, even if it's a game day personnel type thing, is there something that's been a real bright spot to you that is either surprising or unsurprising?
A real bright spot to me. After last night, that's a little bit difficult to answer.
Understandable.
But I think, just in general, the culture reset, and here's where this is going to get tough because they've just been dealt a horrific blow.
Yep.
The talk about the team culture heading into the season, and I feel like I'm repeating myself because I'm pretty sure we talked about this last season and you saw how that turned out. But all reports are saying like Tyler Marsh runs a great ship. All the players are really happy to be playing with each other. They enjoy being here. That is going to be crucial long term because the collective bargaining agreement after this season, nobody knows what it's going to look like in 2026 and beyond. There's so many one-year contracts for that precise reason because nobody wants to be stuck on a bad contract when all of a sudden this new CBA rolls around and like, oh, hey, congrats, you're severely underpaid right now.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I mean, they're all underpaid, but you know what I'm saying. So I think the fact that they know what they need to improve upon, and that's just not on the court. That's opening a new practice facility, which I think is in the works right now. It's not, they're still breaking ground on that right now, but shooting for a new practice facility, shooting for better player accommodations, because right now, Alex, the disparity between the haves and the have-nots continues to grow in the WNBA. It used to be when the league was first, when the league was young, it was like, okay, where are the finances coming from? It's a bunch of eager young investors who don't really know what they're getting into. Now you're seeing teams like the Aces and the Liberty and the Storm and the Mercury. They are going all in on these player accommodations. They're building these state-of-the-art facilities. They are rolling out the red carpet to free agents. They're rolling out the red carpet to, honestly, to opponents too, because right now, like I said, new CBA next year, everyone's going to be a free agent. So people are considering this. This guy right now cannot keep up with that. And they need to figure out a way to kind of make up that difference. I'm not sure. I'm not worth billions of dollars, unfortunately. So I'm not sure how that looks. But the fact that they are trying to at least establish a culture where, okay, we're not going to have to trade all of our draft assets just to field a competitive team. We're not going to have to, rely on somebody like Candace Parker to just decide to come home one day and help us win a championship. We want to have this team where this organization where people actually want to play. We want this team to be one where there are advantages to playing here. And I know that sounds kind of obvious, but it's also kind of abstract. Because like I said, there are things going on off the court that this guy simply cannot keep up with. So they know they need to establish a coaching staff that has the respective players. They need to establish a roster that has the respective other players. So like, okay, hey, I want to come play with Angel Reese. I want to come play with Ariel Atkins. I want to come play with Courtney Vandersloot, something like that. Like you said previously, there's not just a switch that can be flipped. So this is something that everyone is going to be considering when the new CBA hits. So I guess the main bright spot to me is just the process that they're going through, getting new investors, trying to have these games at the United Center. Obviously this isn't going to be an everyday thing, but it does show kind of big picture thinking. And hopefully it's something that they could build upon so that when next year rolls around, when the next television rights deal rolls around, when the next lease on the Wintrust Arena rolls around, they can have a little bit more negotiating power and say, "Hey, we're worthy of doing this."
All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Before you go, can you give our audience a little information on where they could find your work?
Yes, I would love to. As you said, I currently write at swishappeal.com. That is the SB Nation affiliate for women's basketball. I'm doing all sorts of stuff right now. We have a staff of several people. We try to cover each of the teams in the WNBA like on a biweekly basis. I also write about fantasy basketball over there. And when the winter rolls around, I write about college, WNBA draft prospects, and the Women's Euro League, which is where a lot of WNBA players tend to spend their winters. So you can always find my work over there. I'm also on Blue Sky at Nemchok E. I'm not at the other place anymore. I'm on Blue Sky. It's a grand old time. You should come follow me, and we can commiserate together.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks for coming on as always, and we'd love to have you again.
All right. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, that was my good buddy Eric Nemchok talking Chicago Sky. All right, Sean.
I'm going to ask a favor here. I don't think we've ever done this before. Can we start with the White Sox?
Okay. Yeah, there was some big news.
Start us off.
Well, sounds like there is an agreement to maybe sell the team to Ishbia, and it can happen within a certain time. So Jerry Reinsdorf is going to own the team for the next few years, and Ishbia or what he can buy the team if he wants to. He could start buying the shares and then have the complete control by what is it, 2033?
2033.
Yeah. So it's
And then
an
he'll have the
interesting.
option to acquire the controlling interest after the 2034 season. So he'll so the White Sox statement said that the logistics of a possible sale, including Reinsdorf having the option to sell the controlling interest to Ishbia from 2029 to 2033, Ishbia will have the option to acquire the controlling interest after the 2034 season. So it sounds like Jerry could sell at any point, but 2034 is when it has to be done.
Well, wasn't it like he'll own the team through 2029 and then sales can like selling more shares can start happening? Did I read that correctly?
I don't know. It's weird. It's a
It's very
really
weird.
weird situation, and apparently Ishbia is going to be infusing the team with cash in the meantime. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the objective is Jerry to steer the team through the challenges of getting a new stadium using uh his connections, or if it's I'm not sure what it is. I mean, if he's going to sell, why not just sell now?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I didn't understand. And you know what's really interesting about this timing is, and again, it could just be a coincidence. The 78 is going to the Chicago Fire. They announced what, that day or the day before, whenever it was within that last week when the Chicago Fire announced they're building their own stadium at the 78. That's where the Sox were eyeing to build their own stadium. What was that, a year ago when they were exploring that option? They were looking at the
Yeah.
78, and then you had the whole thing with Nashville. And then obviously, this is in the middle of more controversy with when are the Bears going to go to Arlington Heights? It's just kind of funny how that happens, then this comes out, and then obviously we're all still talking about the Bears in Arlington Heights. So there's a lot of moving pieces right now around Chicago sports, but let's face it, while there's been no sale, it seems like a 99.9% chance that Justin Ishbia is going to have that controlling interest by 2034, right? Like we don't see, I mean anything can happen, but I have a hard time seeing that not happening.
It's just that's a really long time away. I mean, it's 2025 right now. So we're looking at the better part of a decade. And is Jerry even going to be alive at that point? I wonder if there's a concession in there that it triggers an automatic sale if Jerry's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering about that too. Like, let's say Jerry passes away before that 2029, because here's what I'm reading from Jesse Rogers. The agreement provides that from 2029 to 2033, Reinsdorf will have the option to sell the controlling interest to Ishbia. After 2034, like you said, Ishbia will have the option to acquire the controlling interest. So it's not like he's saying, okay, the door is open for him to buy it now. It's saying starting in 2029, which that is the weirdest part to me. I can understand if you need time to sell shares and have a time to be the majority controlling owner, but why wait until 2029?
I mean, Jerry is 89 years old. What are the odds that he's still with us at 98? And
Hey,
that
Virginia was with us until 102.
that's true. I mean, but here's the thing is the Ishbias can own the majority of the team, but the way that it is structured is that even if he's not a majority owner, Jerry is the controlling owner.
Right, right.
So that's he's got to give that up. So even if other minority owners start selling their portions to Ishbia, it's as long as Jerry owns shares, he's the majority owner until, he opts out of it or that 2034 comes along.
And we talk about majority owner with Jerry. Remember when we saw the percentage that Jerry actually owns of the White Sox, and we were pretty shocked about how small it was?
Yeah, it's not very much.
No, it's not. But he is the controlling owner, so he is exactly what that is, the controlling owner. So he makes the ultimate decisions. If he wants Tony La Russa in his dugout, so be it. If he wants to get rid of the Goose Island goose in right field, so be it. If he wants to chase one of the best announcers in the game out, he can do it. It's the whole thing is just kind of crazy. But either way, it's big considering the fact that it seemed inevitable. I mean, the structure wasn't really what I envisioned, but Ishbia didn't come in and buy minority shares of the White Sox just to have minority shares of the White Sox, especially.
Yeah, so I just looked. Ishbia owns almost twice as much percentage of the White Sox as Jerry. And but Jerry is the controlling interest, which is just wild. So Ishbia owns 35% to 20% to Jerry.
Geez, that is wild.
So
Well, didn't it? Because I mean, he bought up so much of those minority stakes, right?
I think he's going to try to buy it all.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if he doesn't try. Um, but I I know that I know that the Fire announced that they're going to build a stadium on the 78. But I don't think that stops the White Sox from building on the 78 as well. In fact, there's a potential where you could have uh some sort of synergy there is like a joint parking structure or something like that. Um, but it's big enough to house both teams.
You think that's going to happen?
I don't know. I mean, where else are the White Sox gonna go? I mean, you could just build right where you are. You could renovate the stadium. You could go to the Michael Reese Hospital where the city proposed the Bears go. Um, but I think you have to be smart about things because here's the reality is White Sox games are pretty much exclusively attended by White Sox fans. Cubs games, people come in from out of town and they're like, "Oh, I want to catch a Cubs game." Like I'm not a Cubs fan. I just want to go to Wrigley Field and see a game. It's a it's a byproduct of being accessible in a neighborhood that's fun. There's other things to do. You go to the game and it's a destination type thing.
Right.
I think if you are strategic with the White Sox, something like the 78 where you're close to downtown can help you propel yourself because you're like, oh, okay, all these people that are um, going to the convention center in town for a convention or they're downtown, they could easily go to a White Sox game and it becomes a destination, especially if you do it right and you get a good view of downtown from the stadium, like, and you get those cool shots when they're on TV. And we'll talk about TV in a minute. But it's you've got to be smart about it. Is you could build the best stadium in the world, but if you build it somewhere that it's just not exciting to be, like then you're just going to be at the mercy of just the White Sox fans. And that's not putting the White Sox fans down. It's just you anytime you can infuse out of town money, you take that opportunity. I mean, the White Sox fans the other day, they showed up. They showed up when Teal came up for his first game. Like, so if you give them a reason to be excited, the White Sox fans absolutely show up.
Right.
They're just rightfully so. They're fickle. If you don't put a team on the field, they're not coming. And if you and as a team, you want to insulate yourself from that. The Cubs have insulated themselves from that. The Cubs could put crap on the field. They're still going to have 40,000 people. And the White Sox don't have that luxury. And, you need to put yourself in a position where you can have those people come to be a destination. And then the goal would be then you have this infusion, a baseline infusion of cash that you can count on. You put that towards the team to can start winning, and then the White Sox fans come back to the games, and then you have yourself. I mean, that's your ideal situation there, but it takes a whole lot of work, and it's going to take an infusion of cash and some political maneuvering and smart decisions on where to build a stadium. And I mean, the on-field product we'll get to in a second is starting to take care of itself, but everything else, I don't know if I trust Jerry to be the leader of that.
Well, and with what we're going through with the Bears, and that's a whole other conversation, but remember the Bears situation when they wanted to buy the Arlington Heights racetrack a long time ago, and then they finally did. That was still under Ted Phillips when they actually bought it. And then Ted Phillips left, and then they brought in a new president to take care of it. And you didn't really have a plan. So it's almost like, would you want Ishbia to have a plan himself when he does inevitably become the majority owner? Now, obviously, it does have to play in with the lease. They have that sweetheart lease where they barely have to pay anything with Rate Field, but it would be nice if, in part of buying these minority shares and getting ready to be the successor, that you can have a plan in place. I do want to say this because people have brought it up online, is there have been rumblings that this is Ishbia's way of moving them to Nashville because there's been connections with him and Nashville. I still don't think they're moving to Nashville. I think that they're going to stay here in Chicago. It's just a matter of where in the Chicagoland area they're going to be. But I'm kind of with you. I don't really trust Jerry to make these big decisions. Listen, Jerry's the one that didn't want a lot of what the Cubs have, like didn't want that neighborhood around the ballpark, didn't want a number of things. When they built the current stadium, it wasn't very good, and they had to spend a lot of money and years to make it what it is today. It's a good stadium now, don't get me wrong, but when you first built it, it had that baby blue color to it. It didn't have nearly the same number of amenities that it has now. It had the really steep upper deck that they had to kind of contour and reduce a little bit. It just wasn't nearly as good as it could have and should have been. And even with the good additions to the ballpark and it being a very nice ballpark now, you still, to what you referenced, don't have that neighborhood around it. And then I think Jerry finally realized, oh shit, we should have done that because now he and the Blackhawks are doing that around the United Center. And I think that's what he wanted with the 78 potentially is you could build a lot around if you're at the 78. So, good work, Jerry. You didn't want a lot of that back in 1990, and you realize it's kind of good to have that stuff.
The problem is if you put the Fire and the White Sox there, I don't think you have enough room to build a whole neighborhood around it.
It'd be very tough too. It would be
Um,
very, very tough. This isn't like the Arlington Heights land where it is just a massive tract of land. You could put so much on that land. The 78 is contoured a little differently. It's along the river. It's just a very different type of location.
yeah, I used to work like right across the street, like literally like across the street, and it's a weird plot of land, and there's not much there. So it's uh if you built the baseball stadium and uh people will come because it's really close to Roosevelt Road, and there's talks of, I believe there was an agreement from CTA to build an L stop there, because otherwise your closest one would be, I think, Chinatown, which is not far, but it's a lot farther than the red line from Wrigley Field and or the red line from Wright Field. But there was talk there. I think the CTA had agreed to build a CTA line there, and I think there was money for it as part of the 78 project. So you put a stop right there. That makes it so easy for people to go from downtown, and you don't necessarily have to build a ton there because people just go to downtown. But um, it's still you would like to build a neighborhood there. I'm just curious because where do you go? I mean, you can uh Rosemont, are they had earmarked land for the Cubs to try to entice them to go there, but they've since built stuff there. So I don't think Rosemont is an option. Plus
No, that's
that
changed so much since then.
yeah, and plus I think that alienates a lot of your fans if you move north of the city. Um, so I think I you could go out towards like Aurora. Um, but I'm wondering if they can't make the 78 happen, do they consider going to like Northwest Indiana and just having this like massive like plot of land that they could buy and be on in Northwest Indiana and build like a complex there where it's much less expensive?
I'm not saying they should do this, but one idea that people had talked about is if the Bears move away from Soldier Field and Soldier Field is no more, do you build over there? I don't think that'd be a good idea at all. I am not advocating for that. But
I don't think
is
they
that an
can.
option?
I don't think so because the Friends of the park, um, they they didn't want a Bear stadium there. I don't think they're gonna let the White Sox build there. And plus, the framework of Soldier Field is, the pillars and stuff. That's landmark. So you'd have to, if you
You
built
have to
right
build
on,
around next to it or whatever. But
yeah, and you'd have to get the Friends of the Parks to agree to it. And
yeah,
I mean, they said no to a new Soldier Field or new Bear Stadium. They said no to the Lucas Stadium. Like they're very protective of that area,
they
and
are.
I don't think the White Sox would be able to build a stadium. And would that be cool for them? I think potentially, yeah. It doesn't alleviate the difficulty of getting there,
Logistical nightmare as it is.
but you know, I I'm curious of where they go. And it's not like Rate Field is terrible place. I mean, it's um maybe they spend money and renovate that, and then maybe they buy that from this state.
Maybe, because I don't think the stadium itself is the problem at all. Like I said, it's a pretty good stadium. I mean, the amenities are nice, the food is good.
I
Um,
mean, that could be a win-win right there if Jerry goes to the state and says, "We don't want money. Sell us the property." And
we don't want money. Imagining Jerry Reinsdorf saying those words.
well, he knows they're going to say no to money. But if they, I mean, that might be a win-win because you're like, okay, well, the state has to pay for that stadium anyway. If the White Sox buy it, they could buy it for 50 cents on the dollar, and it takes a burden off the state. Jerry gets a cheaper stadium. They could use the rest of that money to infuse into, upgrades and building around it, buying up land and building around it. I mean that might be an idea. I could see Governor Pritzker being amenable to that.
I just think the biggest thing about the place you're at now is you need to have some sort of a neighborhood like complex around it, even if it's not near as big as Wrigleyville or some of the places they have now at other stadiums like Lambeau Field or even what they're planning to do at the United Center. But I just feel like more than anything is that you want that around your park. You want those bars and restaurants and clubs and shops that are all right around there.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That is, um, you know, necessary. I'm, I just, I'm just trying to see where do you, an option is to build a parking garage so you could use the parking lots as, that. Because you've got a lot of lots. What are there? Like one, two, like five lots?
There is space around there. There is definitely plenty of space and beyond some of those lots, I know this because my cousins used to live right across from the stadium when I was a kid, but in between the lots and their apartment, like the block they lived on, there's like a park area. It's like just a normal park and it's a decent size, so that gives you a little more room there too.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the answer. But I do want to talk about the White Sox on-field play. And we're starting to see the White Sox playing pretty decent baseball.
Hmm.
Great series against Kansas City, a great series against Detroit. Um, you're seeing Chase Mydroth is an on-base machine. He's got a 386 on-base percentage, which is eighth in the American League right now. I mean, he doesn't have enough at-bats to be qualified, but you put that 386 and it slots right into the eighth best in the American League. Uh, Teal came up and I didn't see what he did today, but his first two games, he's batting 500 to 1 for 2 and 2 for 4 in game two. Elko, Elko is slugging 478, which is 20th in the American League. And then you pick up Adrian Hauser, and that guy has been pitching really well for you. Um, you know, you add in Talkman is healthy, and he adds a really solid, more than solid, veteran bat.
He's
Uh,
been pretty good.
Mydroth in there. Benintendi has been fine. Um, you know, other than Luis Robert still struggling, is is Tim Elko your cleanup guy? Because I think the one thing you're really missing is more pop in that lineup.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, Tim Elko's kind of the guy, like we said, that's going to draw comparisons to a Patrick Wisdom type, where sure, he's going to strike out. He's not going to be a big average hitter, but if he could get into one, then that's going to give you something because like you said, Luis Robert really is kind of the downside to all this because it's just a real big struggle for him. But you look at all the positives you have right now. I mean, you've had Edgar Caro up, you've had Chase Maidroff doing really good. Now you got Kyle Teal. So you're seeing your future come up. And again, your pitching is your starting pitching is keeping you in a lot of games, and we couldn't say that the last few years. Your bullpen still ain't great, but what are you going to do on a rebuilding team, you know? So the fact that they're in these games, I mean, heck, they were down big in the ninth inning and almost came back today. I think it took a spectacular play by Bobby Witt Jr. To kind of thwart that rally, but they didn't quit. And you're seeing a much more inspired team with more young talent than you did last year. And we say this every week, but you're truly seeing it now.
And I know Gary will be very upset with me to focus on Luis Robert again, but he was sat down and given the opportunity to kind of reset. And the first game back, he did great. 2 for 3 with 3 batted in. You're like, okay, maybe that was the trigger there. But since that game, he's 0 for 8 with 4 strikeouts. So it is just a free fall. I think it's going to be huge. The Getz is saying that there are teams interested in him, and that I think would just be a benefit to get rid of him because you've got a lot going on with this team. Like I said, is Talkman was a great pickup, and I think we both agreed when the White Sox picked him up that that was a great pickup.
Yep.
And you've got all these young players, and I guess one of my questions is, you know, is Teal is Teal your catcher going forward? Or do you try to preserve him because he's such a good bat and try to spread him out, either, limit the number of catching games and try to play him at first or DH or something? Or do you say, hey, he's a catcher? And so far, we've seen 2 of 3 games he's played as catcher.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something they're going to try to figure out because you have multiple catching prospects on your team. Obviously, you have Edgar Caro, you have Teal, and then you have Corey Lee, who's probably going to be your backup catcher. So I think you're okay there, but I will be interested to see how that develops.
Yeah, I mean, but you've got yourself a nice corner, you're building yourself a nice young roster. Um, and you're seeing, I mean, sure, over the last, like, what, 12 games, they're 500, which is not like, oh, to write home about, but
It's a hell
considering,
lot better than where you
yeah,
were.
but considering where they were, at this time last year, you're like, that is a huge improvement. I mean, that is an astronomical improvement. And, you've got to sing praises. And I don't, it's tough to say with the way that they're getting performances from some people that just don't have a history of that. You're like, is this, everybody's all of the, their best play sinking at the same time? Or is this just a roster that's being built and guys are, able to perform their best in that environment? And if so, that sings a lot of praise of both Getz's front office and the new manager because uh we've heard the stories the last couple years about what a disaster it is to play for them, and these young players don't know that. They don't know that.
Yeah, and I mean, give credit too to guys like Brian Bannister. You hear a lot about him, and I think he was just such a vital addition to that organization. And I think there is reason to look and say, you know what? Maybe this team really is turning a corner. Matt Spiegel referenced this, the whole turning a corner thing, and brought up Brian Bannister and a few other factors in it. But I do think there is reason to think that a corner is being turned. Obviously, you have a ways to go, but you don't build a baseball team in 1 year. We know that whether it's a successful or failed rebuild, we know how long those can take. We saw it in the city on multiple levels. But listen, I think there was a lot more hope from the future there now than there was a year ago today. A year ago today, everything seemed utterly hopeless. Now, not nearly as much.
Yeah, and it just sucks because it took to this point to really get them where they need to be, and now you're so far in the hole that even though you're playing well, like you're still over 20 games out of first place, and you're 12 games behind Kansas City for uh, you know, fourth place, and you still have the worst record in the American League. So there's just a lot of bad things, but the good play, this was already written off before the first pitch of opening day as a lost season. So any positives you start taking away, you're like, okay, building blocks, because yeah, we all acknowledge it's going to take time and it's going to take money. And, you know, there's opportunity out there for the White Sox, especially with a young pitching staff that's affordable. I mean, Shane Smith is not making very much money. Uh, Hauser is not, he's making like what, million and a half this year. Like you've got nobody expensive on your pitching. Your rotation is very inexpensive, and you've got young guys that are going to be on, rookie deals coming up. You can use some of that money and invest that in veteran bats. Go get a guy, and suddenly this young core, we see what a Kyle Tucker can do to your roster. Is add a veteran bat, like can you imagine if they could have added a Pete Alonso to this team? That kind of power in the middle of the
Yeah.
lineup to meld around. That would have been huge. That would have been, like something like that. And, with Ishbia's money infusion, maybe this offseason they actually make those moves.
Yeah, absolutely. You spend a little money. I have to look ahead at what the market looks like, but yeah, I mean, you could make a move that surprises maybe one or two even. And again, it's something where you can say, "Hey, we actually spent on a big fish or a bigger fish that's not like an Andrew Benintendi or what a Yasmani Grandal." It's like, "Oh, you spent something on a really big piece." Again, I have to look forward to see what the market's going to look like. And I know things are a little complicated going forward with the impending CBA, but you have the chance to maybe make a little noise. And maybe it's not a big fish. Maybe you spend on a few good pieces, you know? Time will tell, but you have an opportunity here to take a big step forward. And I think you're already taking one.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Tucker is available.
Well, not to be biased, but I'd prefer he stay over here.
Oh, I
But
would too. I'm just saying that is a big bat that um could be very helpful in your lineup.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean it's nice to see things start to there be positive things to talk about. And I know you could have been like, well, there's these players in the minor leagues, blah blah blah. And as a Cubs fan, that it sucks that if you have to talk about, oh, this is what our minor league looks like, because you want to see wins at the major league level.
hmm
And you can hang your hat knowing that good minor league is a chance for you to have a good major league roster, but it doesn't always translate. I mean, look at the Orioles. They had one good season and then now they're in the pits. Um,
yeah,
so, but to actually start to see the wins translate, and I know it's a short like time slice of the season, but we've seen competitive baseball most of the season. Even if the results haven't quite been there, we've seen much more competitive baseball. And it takes time to change the culture. It takes time to develop young players. And the fact that, they did so well against the Tigers, who are might be the best team in baseball, and to split a 4-game series, that's huge. That's really big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, on the other side of town, oh, wait, oh yeah, one more thing with the White Sox and I guess the Bulls and the Blackhawks.
I was gonna say,
Um, so see, Chicago Sports Network made an announcement that they're going to be partnered on and featured on Comcast. And it sucks because this was not a good deal for CHSN. This was essentially they caved and accepted the deal that Comcast offered them. So there was no concessions. They accepted the deal. They'll be on Comcast, but they'll be on the highest tier. So you have to pay extra in order to get the channel. And they, as part of the deal, they can no longer broadcast on over the air uh, network anywhere that Comcast is. So for those folks that, like me, that bought an antenna to watch the Blackhawks, the Bulls, and the White Sox, is you can no longer do that starting by the time you listen to this podcast. You will no longer be able to watch baseball, basketball, or hockey for free. You're either going to pay for the streaming service, which is expensive, or you have get Comcast at the highest tier, which is also expensive.
really shit deal. It really sucks for the fans, and I can't believe we have to use the words, well, we gotta throw out our antennas in 2025.
I can at least say I can still watch Svengoolie.
I like to think your Svengoolie antenna is just this obnoxiously tall antenna that people can see for like blocks.
It's basically the creature of the Black Lagoon sculpted out of tinfoil on top of my roof.
You're trying to hold it down with like rope. I gotta make sure it doesn't blow down.
It's got a gust of wind. The wind is taking it.
You see it womp 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 womp.
You're
Ah,
but it really sucks is because I like, especially for anybody that has another service other than Comcast, like if you have YouTube TV or one a competing company like Dish or whatever, you can't get it. Like it's Comcast. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so like I'm not getting Comcast. Like that's just non-starter. I'm not spending $100 some a month or whatever it is to watch the White Sox and the Bulls. And I'm not paying that premium fee for their streaming service. So I guess I will just have to listen to the Blackhawks on the radio.
It's annoying. It really, really is.
You know, uh, you hope that, like, I don't know, YouTube TV can get it. I mean, like for you, it sucks because I know you have Comcast, but you're gonna have to probably upgrade your package to get it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, so I'm paying an extra whatever a month for this, or I can stream it, and it just stinks. It just
I'll wait for
stinks.
hockey season to start.
Yeah.
No
So
reason to do it now.
yeah, I'll have to look into the possibilities of VPNing it and then getting the NHL package and doing it that way. So at least my wife can watch her Flyers play and then watch the Blackhawks through that. Because
With the VPN.
yeah, I mean, I did that for the Cubs one year until they figured out my VPN and then stopped. I couldn't do it anymore.
What year
Um,
was that?
the first year of Marquee.
I like to think Tom Ricketts was personally on the case.
He's sitting outside my house with binoculars and a fake mustache.
He's got a file on you, just a manila folder.
And he's got a banker's box full of people. He's like, let me get this Sean Hopman first, and then I gotta go to John Smith over in on Diversity, and we're gonna get these guys.
He drives around in a white van. He's just going to all these places.
It's spray painted on the side of it, not Ricketts. Definitely not Ricketts.
It's a shitty old van. Every time you start it, it makes like the Uncle Buck like exhaust explosion noise.
Uh, God, yeah. So, but we did sign up for the MLB package because my wife was desperate to watch Phillies games, so we signed up for that the other day. Um, and my wife has watched exactly one half of a game so far.
Well, Cubs' next opponent, they're going to be in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but I signed up for I tried a month of the marquee again. We'll see how that goes. So get to watch it either way. Well, I guess I won't be able to watch it on the MLB because it'll be
It'll
in
be
network
blacked
for me.
out,
Yeah, it'll be
right?
blacked
Yeah.
out for me. So um but yeah, so just that really sucks that whole CHSN. That was such a bad rollout. Somebody needed to get fired for that for how bad of a rollout that was.
Yeah, I wish we just got a better deal out of it. It's frustrating.
I mean, at that, you should have just bought NBC Sports Chicago and renamed it and kept the deal. Like, that just probably would have made more sense.
Yeah, good old CHSN. I mean, I liked NBC Sports Network. I really did.
Yeah, well, RIP.
Rip.
Um, so Cubs. I do want to say this before we start, is did you watch the first game of the Cubs Tiger series?
I miss that, but I saw the highlights of it.
I watched it on Apple TV Plus because I subscribe to that, and I really liked the game on that network.
They actually do a pretty good job on Apple TV. The quality is great.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I called my wife in and I was like, "Come sit down and watch this inning with me." I'm like watch this game. Like it was really nice. It kind of makes me hope that they get like the NFL Sunday ticket or something because that I watched live sports on Netflix. I've watched live sports on Amazon Prime, and Apple TV was much better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Um, but that game was frustrating. That first game, the Cubs should have won that game. They they just botched. Like they shot themselves in the foot several times, and it was the Tigers were definitely, I don't want to say worries the right word, but they were very cognizant that they were playing the Cubs because Skubal was moved from his start against the White Sox,
Right.
and they started him game one against the Cubs, and he pitched really well, but the Cubs were able to
They
make
got some good swings.
they got some good swings on him, and some were just some loud outs, but they were able to get base runners and some hard hits. And I mean, the worst of them all, the blunders was the the one where PCA was rounding third,
The bad send, yeah.
and they sent him and then stopped him, and that was so bad.
Yeah, that was rough. That was a mistake on the Cubs end. And then obviously late in the game, you had the Tigers make some really good defensive plays. And I think for me, that was just a tip of the cap. The Cubs did not look like they didn't belong.
No, no. I mean, honestly, the Cubs should have won that series. Um, and it makes me feel like the Cubs are actually legitimate contenders and not just a team that can make the playoffs and but they can actually make noise. And if they make some smart decisions and some smart moves at the trade deadline or before. Bruce Levine has hinted multiple times uh, that Jed could make moves weeks before the trade deadline.
Sure.
Um, if those pan out, this Cubs team could be super legit.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway here was I don't feel any worse about where things are, even though you lost 2 or 3. I mean,
Asterisk.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen. Today was frustrating because did you see it yet? Did you see the Nico play yet?
No, no, I didn't.
I want you to you have your computer up, right? Like you could pull up Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Pull
gonna
it up
pull it.
right now.
I'm pulling it up.
You need to see this.
Um,
So, for your reference, like I said at the beginning of the show, Nico was called strike 3 on a very, very bad pitch. He immediately got ejected, and Craig Counsell got ejected. And now, keep in mind, this came a day after the umpire was really bad on both ends. I mean, Doug Eddings, I think that was Doug Eddings, he was trending for the wrong reasons. Usually, when an umpire trends, it's not for good reasons, but he had some awful calls in yesterday's game. And that was another game I didn't see live. I was out of town, but there were some really, really bad calls on that game on both sides. And I think that the Cubs especially had enough of it, especially after what happened to Nico Horner.
I mean, that was low and inside, and man, I mean, somebody's got to take the mantle of Angel Reese as the worst umpire in baseball. That was a bad
Angel
call.
Reese, you mean
Oh, so Angel Reese.
Oh my,
I have my notes
you mean
open from earlier. Uh, God.
Angel
And
Hernandez?
Angel Hernandez as the. I mean, Angel Reese is probably a shitty umpire too. Just to be fair. I mean,
So would I. Yeah, I mean, let's
I
be
mean,
real.
she's really tall. That she'd have to crouch way down to be able to get a good view. But Angel Hernandez as the worst umpire in baseball, and somebody's got to be the worst. And that was bad. And that was a really ticky tack, uh, ejection.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that happened today too. Ian Happ was called out at home. I don't know if you saw this replay.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now.
It was close. I'm not completely shocked they didn't overturn it because of how close it was, but I do think he was safe.
I mean, it was a
That
really good throw.
it was. And again, I'm not saying they would have won or lost this game. You know, the Cubs had some opportunities, they didn't take advantage. I'm not saying it would have won or lost them the game, but they were two notable calls. And with the bases loaded later that inning that Happ was called out on, Michael Busch hit an absolute screaming line drive for an out. So my whole point being is you hung in there tough. You had a rookie on the mound versus a seasoned veteran in Flaherty. It wasn't your day, but you hung in there. I mean, the whole point I'm trying to make here is, like I said, you didn't look like you didn't belong. I didn't, you, it would have been a bit more concerning if they got swept and they got their butts kicked in every single game, and that didn't happen. You lost a 50-50 game where you just got outlasted Friday. You won big on Saturday. Saturday was great. You hit 4 home runs, two by Suzuki, one by PCA, one by Shaw, one by Bush, and Jamison Tyone threw an absolute gem. You got to feel great about that. So it was frustrating to lose 2 or 3, but it wasn't, demoralizing by any means. Now, you still have some challenges coming up because guess what? You're going to face Zach Wheeler. You're going to face Jesus Luzardo. You're going to face Paul Skeens next week. You got some real tough pitching matchups coming up. So
Right.
we'll see how they handle it.
Um, a positive thing is Matt Shaw looks a lot better. I mean, he's playing very good third base, which honestly, if he wasn't hitting at all, just playing competent third base, I think would have been a plus.
Yes.
But he's he's starting to look like the guy that we were hoping he would be when he was in the minors.
Right. Yes. You're seeing much, much better at bats. you're seeing him spray the ball to the other way and hitting it hard. I mean, he's still not hitting everything hard, but you're seeing it hit hard a bit more often. The home run he hit the other day was an absolute bomb. You're seeing doubles being hit. Is there still some ways to go? Sure there is, but you're seeing overall better production from him ever since he came back up.
Yeah, it's night and day difference. Still not his final form, which he's a 23-year-old kid. Like you're not expecting that, but he's starting to look like the guy that he was touted to be. So, I mean, we were really counting on it because it there's an absolute gaping hole at third base without him. There's not much of a plan B. It's the 400-year-old Justin Turner or, you know, some nobodies. So there's not a lot of options there. So it was really important for him to step up, and it's making all the difference.
Yep.
Um, Out of curiosity, and what's your opinion on this?
hmm
At what point do the Cubs start letting Michael Busch hit against lefties?
Well, I'd like to see it a little more often. We've seen him get some better swings off lefties lately. I mean, honestly, Michael Busch has played the last few weeks very, very well. I'd like to see it more sooner than later. I'm not saying it
Y-
has to be every time, but a little more would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's at some point, you have to make a decision on if he's your guy long term. And your long term guy will play every day. And not be starting just against righties or whatever, coming in as a late game substitution when the lefty starter goes out. He plays every day. Like Pete Alonso plays every day. He's a guy.
Right.
Um, so you've got to establish is Bush that guy. And I get shielding him and trying to get your best opportunities at the plate every game because as we've seen you know way too close up is losses at the beginning of the season really bite you in the ass at the end of the season.
hmm
And so taking advantage of getting those wins early. So I get it. I really do. But at some point, you've got to starting him against lefties on a regular, at least a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, and it might depend on the lefty itself on the mound. I mean, obviously, like there's a difference between facing, some mid lefty versus a Scooble or, I think it was you could even say Chris Sale if he's still on the Braves when they face him. If he's not a Cub by then, wink wink.
Um, yeah. So I mean, I think that's a big one. Uh, I know. Oh, so another thing I want to say is the Cubs. It's June. We're in June now, and we're a good way into June, and we're over the quarter of the way through June. The Cubs are pretty firmly established in first place, and this is not a you know you could knock on wood all you wanted, but it's a fact. They are in first place, and they've got a little bit of a cushion. That is a fairly historically, that's a good spot to be in at this point. We're like 40% of the way through the season. And I think last year, every team that was in first place by this point, except one, won the division. So, how confident are you feeling about the Cubs' chances of taking this division?
It's the kiss of death from Mr. Sean Hotman. Wow, 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 wow. I would say 70%. I still I still am scarred by what the Brewers have been able to do over the past 6, 7 years. And I understand that this Brewer team compared to last year. You don't have Willie Adames anymore. You traded away your closer, but they still find ways, and they've been pretty darn hot lately. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but I just don't think I could put them to bed yet. And the Cardinals, they haven't been as good lately, but they just took a series from the Dodgers and they won in ridiculous fashion on Saturday. Do I think on paper any of those teams are better than the Cubs? No, I don't. But all it takes is a few more injuries on the Cubs and another, miracle by the Cardinals or the Brewers to change that. So I'm more confident than not that they will win the division, but I am not ready to start thinking about t-shirts yet.
So probability wise, so mathematical probability, the Cubs are at a 72.2% chance to win the division, 86.6% chance to make the playoffs, and 6.2% chance to win the World Series.
Kind of aligns the division odds kind of align with where I'm at.
And that is in line with the Tigers' chance of winning the division. They're a little bit higher, but right in line. Um, the Yankees and the Dodgers are the teams that the Dodgers have a 82.7, even though they're ahead by one game, they have an 82.7% chance to win the division.
That Dodger team is really banged up.
I know, and they're still just winning away.
Yeah, I must be nice to have those resources, but I mean, yeah, like, you know, I remember 2016, where there never really was a division race. And I think people dismissed much of the NL Central this year, thinking that maybe if the Cubs were good, it could be a runaway. And there's a long way to go. There's so much that could happen. I just am not sure how much the Cardinals can keep up with and how much the Brewers can keep up with. Again, on paper, I don't think they're better than the Cubs, but it can only take a few things for that to just completely change in a baseball season. I don't know yet. Did the Cardinals just have a really good month? Or are they going to be at least a team that hangs around? I don't look at the Brewers on paper and think that they are going to keep up with this. But they
I
find ways.
Here's the thing is the Cubs just need to be ahead as we get closer to the trade deadline because I don't think the Cardinals and the Brewers can overcome the Cubs and the moves the Cubs inevitably will make without making moves themselves. And those teams have to ask themselves, do we feel confident enough to make a run for it and trade away assets to try to keep up with the Cubs? Or are we just going to stand pat and just see how it plays out? I think
Sure.
that is going to be a turning point because the Cubs will inevitably make moves because they'd be stupid not to the way that the season is going. You're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. And if they make the smart moves that we're expecting them to make, the Cardinals and the Brewers, I don't think have a chance. I mean, I guess there's a chance for everything, but I don't think that it's very likely that they are able to make a run and overcome without making moves themselves. And I just don't know if they're willing to because I don't think either one of them feel confident that they could win a World Series. And if you can't win a World Series, then what's the point of spending the money in the capital?
So here's going to be the key. The Cubs have to beat them, both of them.
Yes.
If you do, then you're going to win the division. If they don't, then it's going to be a race. We have the Brewers coming up, I think, not this coming week, but next week. You got to beat them.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
haven't played
absolutely.
the Cardinals yet, and you got a lot of games against the Cardinals starting midsummer and on. You got to beat them. And the Cardinals have some young talent there, and their starting pitching looks awfully good right now. Uh, I'm pretty confident in the Cubs, but boy, I'm not ready to buy the ticket yet.
Speaking of buying tickets, I forgot to mention this. I bought a betting ticket for on Chase Mydroth to win American League Rookie of the Year. Why did I do it? Number one, he's playing well. But two, I put a $15 bet down. Do you know what the payout is on that $15 bet?
What is it?
$2,265.
Wow.
So that
Hard
uh
not to take.
it was yeah, it was I mean, that is just um silly to not take it. Um and I also put a bet in on Shane Smith to win Rookie of the Year. And I put a $10 bet on that one. Not nearly the payout, but $10, and I would take home $430.
I was going to say, there's no way it's going to be as big, but hey, if you paid $10 and got 400 some dollars back, that's still a nice return on investment.
Yeah. So, um, I mean, I think like it's hard to the way that those two are playing, it's hard to not see them being finalists at least. So those like it's well within the realm of possibility that they win. And I win either one of those, and it's just it's found money there.
Right.
Um, let's talk a little Bears here.
Hmm.
There's not a ton going on, but they wrapped up their first mandatory mini camp, and all the players were there. Not all of them practiced, and not all of them were full participants, but everybody was there. No holdouts. Um, and they had a day of what they called fun practice, and you saw everybody going out to be a receiver on offense, including Caleb Williams and the offensive lineman. And you saw Ozzy Trapillo run good routes, and you saw the right tackle make a spinning one-handed catch. And when asked about it, Ben Johnson lit up and said, "Oh, I saw it." And
That
you
was an
know
awesome catch.
it was. You know that is in his brain. At some point in the season, we are going to see Darnell Wright in a tackle eligible situation, and he's going to go out for a pass, and you're going to watch the big man make a huge play.
Well, when you hear Ben Johnson is practicing trick plays, that gets you excited, knowing what Ben Johnson's been able to pull off as an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
I mean, you think about the bumble stumble. Uh, so the man is going to draw up some plays, and he's all of these things. I mean, he's like, okay, I'm going to take one mini camp practice where nobody's in pads. I can't hit. I'm going to do something fun that is going to scratch an itch. Who on my team can catch the ball? And who do I feel confident that they'll catch the ball when it means a lot? And he's finding out who has good hands and who doesn't. And that when it comes time to install plays, boy, is it going to be somebody's going to get caught off guard. Um, we also learned from Tyson Bagent that the uh the Bears coaches quiz them on plays. They call the play, make them repeat the play, talk through the play, and if they don't like what they're hearing, or that they don't feel confident that what the quarterbacks are saying, they have to redo it. And that repetition and the high expectation is big. It these players are not ready for it. I mean, they were not prepared last year. They really weren't. We talked about it, we saw it, and this team is not going to be unprepared. They might lose. You might see them not play well, but it's not going to be because they're not prepared.
I agree. He's Ben Johnson's not going to let what you saw a lot under Matt Eberflus. I mean, remember how livid you and I were week 1 of 2023 when the Packers came to down and killed them and they looked completely unprepared?
Yeah. Yep. That's not going to happen. They might lose. It might take a while for this offense to hit on all cylinders,
Sure.
but it is not going to be because they're not prepared. This team is going to be prepared.
Right.
Um, Ben Johnson identified his 4 standouts from the mini camp. And it was 4 names I was not expecting. Dominique Robinson,
I was not expecting that name, that's for sure.
Ruben Hippolyte, Joel Wilson, Kyle Monangai.
Which is big because you heard the news today, right?
Yeah, that Nick Chubb is probably going to be signing with the Texans.
Yep.
I saw that and my heart sank to my stomach because I think that's going to be a huge pickup for them.
I
Him,
think so
him
too.
and Joe Mixon is going to be a really, really tough running back duo.
I would just hate to watch Nick Chubb have a great season and think we could have had that.
Yeah. Um,
But we'll
so
see. I mean, we could be wrong.
yeah, I mean, it could be where he just looks spent. I mean, it happens. Running backs, they
They age out
that
quickly.
they age out very quickly, and you know the knee injuries could take their toll. So I don't know. I just have a feeling that there's more in the tank.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if you saw Cole Kmet get yelled at by Ben Johnson.
He got yelled at and then he got married, so good for him.
Now he's going to get yelled at more. Um, I mean, and he was like, yeah, he's like, I think my spacing was off or my alignment was off. And he's like, it wasn't off by that much, but you know what? Good. Call out players is how many pre-snap penalties did we see last year?
Too damn many.
How many times did we see wide receivers lined up incorrectly? So you got illegal, the uh, illegal formations, um, and think penalties like that. Like how many times did we see them?
Too damn many.
And that's not going to happen. Is part of winning and part of having an offense is not shooting yourself in the foot.
Which is all the Bears have known to do in my life.
Yeah. So yeah, if Cole Kmet is not lining up correctly, he's a veteran. You correct him and you correct him in front of everybody. And you could pull him aside afterwards and be like, hey, there was nothing personal. And if they see a veteran and a team captain type guy getting yelled at like that, you know what? Everybody better fall in line. DJ Moore got a talking to about body language because they're addressing what they saw last year. And right or wrong, like what DJ Moore, his frustrations were totally justified last year, but the way he displayed it was not the correct way, and that got corrected. And he addressed it. He said that will not happen again. They are.
Did you hear Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said they are correcting things, not just what they're seeing now, but what they saw last year. They are not going to accept it.
Did you see the clip of Ben Johnson talking about Caleb and, he had a pass over the flat or whatever it was, and he's like, yeah, he was late on that.
Yeah,
How'd he respond? Awesome.
yeah. I mean, it. That's part of it. It's a lot of times with quarterbacks, it's not that they can't make the throw. It's not that they can't make the right read. It's can you do it? Because NFL is just a very small windows for you to hit success.
Yep.
And if you're not hitting that wide receiver at the right time, it's a difference between an incomplete pass and a big gain.
Especially if you're Ben Johnson, because you know he likes the big explosive plays. So a lot of those plays he's going to be calling are going to be meant to be 20, 30, 40, 50 plus yard plays. So every detail has to be spot on for what he has to accomplish. And that's what we're seeing here. I mean, you know what would be great is if we could just get a compilation of Ben Johnson at Hallis Hall just yelling at players. I would love to see it.
Yeah. And I love that he is just standing in front of there. He's honest. He's, I mean, when was the last time we had such honesty from the Bears? Um,
Um,
I would say Lovey was honest.
yes.
And then before that, I didn't feel, I don't feel Matt Nagy was honest. He was very, what's the right word? Personable, but I don't
I
always
agree.
feel like he was honest. I felt Lovey was honest and personable. Didka was honest but angry. I feel like
Here's your
Ben.
IQ, buddy. 0.
Uh, who you crapping?
Hey, buddy.
Who you crapping? Uh, I feel like Ben Johnson is extremely honest, and I feel like he's also personable, but he's also no nonsense. I mean, like he'll joke around and stuff, but when it's time to be serious, he's serious.
And he speaks in such an articulate manner, and there isn't all this BS fluff and stupid isms and acronyms and all that dumb crap.
Yeah. Oh my, I don't have to hear about situational smarts.
The hits principle,
Oh
which,
my God.
hey, the hits principle in theory makes sense. I get it, but
Is, but like, fine. If you want people to be situationally smart, okay, that's fine. But just coach it that way. Don't be like, don't use an acronym.
right,
And
exactly. You pay attention to the details.
I wish Hard Knocks was Bears this year.
Oh, don't we all?
This is the
Don't we
Bears team
all?
I want because it would be a whole lot different. You wouldn't see him walking around going, "Hey, Spider-Man. Hey, stupid nickname guy." Like, you would just see him just no nonsense. No nonsense Ben Johnson.
Well, and you know what else too that I think is really, really cool? Knowing that stupid things like we've seen, forever, knowing that if you cut down on that, that can potentially be a big difference in a number of games. And if you aren't committing those stupid things, you open the door to winning more tight games potentially. Again, you have to play well, but my whole point here is remember the Hail Mary last year. Remember what you saw from Tyreek Stevenson
Mm-hmm.
on that play. You think that would happen with Ben Johnson coaching?
No, and you know what? I'm I'm less mad at. I know Tyreek Stevenson was the one that did it. I know this, and I'm not absolving him. I'm more mad at Matt Eberflus for that play than I am Tyreek Stevenson because Tyreek Stevenson is a young player that's prone. Like he's going to make mistakes, and he was showboating. That was not coached out of him, but it was Matt Eberflus that not only didn't recognize that the Washington Commanders would take a small, a moderate gain to set themselves up for the Hail Mary, didn't recognize that was going to happen, and then let it happen, didn't acknowledge that that was important, and then didn't get his players prepared mentally for the Hail Mary. Like though that is on I was gonna say Benja, that is on Matt Eberflus 100%. And just listening to the head coaches talk after the game where he's like, "Oh, that wasn't important to play before." And then you hear Dan Quinn go, that play set up everything.
As soon as that play happened, I said, oh no. I'm like, how did you let that happen so easily?
It
I knew
is,
that was going to be a big play watching it on TV.
and I really want to know, did Matt Eberflus really think that play wasn't important? Or did he just not want to admit that he messed up in front of everybody?
You're probably right. You're probably right.
Either way, that's embarrassing. He
It
should have
shouldn't have happened in the first place. It just
should not
shouldn't
have
have
happened.
happened.
Yeah. But I mean, if even if it did, and we're not going to play, would have, could have, should have, he needs to go up to that podium and say, I, I am responsible. That was on
Yes.
me. I did not display situational smarts there.
Didn't he put a freaking spy in there too on the Hail Mary?
Uh, I don't remember. I don't. I tried to block that whole play out of my brain.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
It's frustrating, and I don't. Ben Johnson's not going to do that. Ben Johnson is not going to a like fall for that, and b he's going to take responsibility. He's going to.
He's gonna make mistakes.
Oh,
Like we know he's
there's
going to
growing.
make.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
there's going to be growing pains,
absolutely.
but
Because one thing we don't know, what's it going to be like with clock management? Because you and I both know that in this league, for some of the smarter coaches, clock management is an issue.
yeah, I
We
mean,
talked about it with Matt LaFleur.
Matt LaFleur, that has been his Achilles heel is clock management. Um, the hope is that you're so far ahead of everybody and that it doesn't matter, but at some point it's going to matter. But those are learning things. Those are part of taking that step up. And what makes me feel a little more confident is he has a mix of experienced coaches with him. It's not everybody, with butt cheek clenching because they're in a spot they've never been. You've got coaches that have been there before.
Eric Bieniemy.
Yes, Eric Bieniemy he was a hot name in the head coaching cycles just a couple of years ago, and now he's your
Yes, he
running backs
was.
coach. He coached under Andy Reid. Um, you've got really smart players on that offensive line. Joe Tooney, there's a story that came out recently about him is that his agency, when he was coming out of the draft, when he took the Wonderlic test, they told him to intentionally get some wrong because they didn't want him to have to explain why he was so smart to like beyond everybody else. So apparently he would have got a perfect score. He got a couple intentionally wrong. Like he's a smart guy and he's played under Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. He's going to help you in those moments. You're not going to, he's a general on the field. You've got other coaches that are just experienced coaches that are there to help you, support you through this.
Right. Well,
Um,
and that's another thing too we asked a lot last year when something would come up and there was a timeout that wasn't called. You remember the Lions game on Thanksgiving. There were challenges where you're like, why the hell are you challenging this? I mean, that is a whole system of coaches. And how many times did we ask ourselves, why? Why was that challenge made? Why didn't you call a timeout? We asked that so many times, and while Matt Eberflus is ultimately responsible, there are other coaches on the staff to help out, and we were all asking the same thing.
and I don't remember who it was. I read a quote from one of the players, and they were saying that Ben Johnson, they expected him to be very smart with the quarterback and the offensive players, but they said his knowledge of all of the position players, both offense and defense, blew them away. Like he knew where players were supposed to be as in their cornerbacks and the edge rushers and linebackers and tight ends. And he knew where everybody was supposed to be and how things were like is we didn't see that with Matt Eberflus.
No.
And I'm sure that Ben Johnson is going to leave Dennis Allen for the most part to run the defense, but
Yeah, he is. I mean, that's pretty
he's
much, yeah.
he's going he's going to take that opportunity to all through training camp to make his voice heard. And during game planning of making his voice heard, like, he's not going to be on the sideline coaching them, but he's going to have input on how everything works, how which players are on the field and things like that. He's going to have his voice heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The last thing I want to talk about the Bears, and I'll see if you have anything else, is I went back and, like I said, I'm a Michigan football fan. Grew up since I was a little kid watching Michigan football. I've seen pretty much every Colston Loveland game there is. I went back and rewatched him with an eye of what what I'm expecting to see in a Ben Johnson offense. And I think he is a better Sam Laporta. Better, bigger
That's
and better.
bold. That's bold.
And I just watch him and it's going to be so tough to cover him because he has the way he breaks on the ball is like a wide receiver. The way he gets open is like a wide receiver. He is uh you know, it is like I don't know who's going to cover him. He's too big for a cornerback. He's going to body them. And they better be good anyway because he's fast. He runs like a running back or a wide receiver. He makes breaks like a wide receiver and he he's big. And if you put a linebacker on him, I watched Ohio State and Penn State linebackers. So it's not like they're that far off of what they'll see in the NFL and just absolutely make them look stupid and wind up wide open.
So
And we
riddle me. I'm
and,
sorry, go ahead.
and we see a player like Travis Kelce, where you're like, oh, everybody knows it's going to go to Travis Kelce, and he still winds up open. You're like, how did that happen? And you watch Colston Loveland, and you're like, oh, that's how that happens. And he was in pads. He was in pads. He's going to be ready for training camp. So it's not going to be a situation where he falls behind. He's going to be ready for training camp and you're going to see what he can do and you're going to see complementary football with Cole Kmet.
So riddle me this. Let's say you're facing a 4-3 defense. So a defense that has three linebackers. One of your linebackers is a strong side linebacker, and you run two tight end sets. So you have Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland out there. Doesn't that just automatically create a massive mismatch?
Yes. Right off the bat. I
Kind of
mean,
exciting, isn't it?
let's say they go into a nickel when they see that uh two tight end set. They go to a nickel. Um, that's still a mismatch. I I think there's a handful of teams that I think won't necessarily be a mismatch. Like the Ravens, I don't because they've got a really big safety that can cover. Like, okay. There's not that many teams where that won't be a mismatch. I think you're gonna have to put like a coverage safety on him or a team that has a really good nickel. Um, and it's you're not going to be able to take him away with a double team because you've got Roma Dunze, who, by all accounts, is having a great, camp so far. DJ Moore, who is a consummate professional, and you're going to have hopefully soon enough the healthy new, uh, wide receiver in Luther Burden III. You're, you know, it's and Cole Kmet is not a bad tight end. He's going to be able to do things too. We saw that. So I think the way you've set up weapons, if your offensive line holds, is you're going to have the ability to take advantage.
Yeah, I'm hoping it really works out well.
One thing that I'm very excited about that I said was an absolute both stupid and a missed opportunity was the offense the Bears ran last year did not uh, did not have scramble drills built into that offense. With a running or a quarterback like Caleb Williams, who has such escapability, is why wouldn't you have, when the play breaks down, him know exactly where everybody's going to be? You saw that during the prime of Aaron Rodgers, that play would break down, and he knew whatever wide receiver was with him at that time. Let's just say Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is going deep, and this other wide receiver is, Romeo Dobbs is coming in, and he knows that he's got this guy coming in, that guy going deep, and those plays can break down. And how many big touchdowns did they have because the play broke down because they weren't able to sack Aaron Rodgers and he escaped?
More than you can count.
Is that Ben Johnson, I'm positive, is going to have them ready for that situation. When Caleb breaks a sack and is rolling out, he's going to know where his guys are going to go, and those guys are going to know where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, we
And
need
Aaron,
that.
and Aaron Rodgers, speaking of, is back. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, who the Bears do play this year.
Yes, they will be coming to Soldier Field. So one more shot with Rodgers at Soldier Field.
Yep. And after the odds of the making the Super Bowl for the Steelers did not move a single bit once they signed Aaron Rodgers.
Wasn't it like plus 4,000? And then they
Plus,
showed the graphic again. It's still plus 4,000.
plus 4,500.
4,500. Okay.
Yeah. And it did not move at all. So the odds makers in Vegas said, meh, he's not gonna win him a Super Bowl. And I
I
saw
mean,
it.
listen, it's gonna be hard when the Steelers. I just don't think they have enough.
I saw somebody did like an AI thing where they took Aaron Rodgers and they like dubbed over his voice. And it was like, hey, Steelers fans, you ready to not make the Super Bowl with me and have me try to bring my old ass wide receiver friends with me?
Oh, I saw that too. I saw that.
Uh, God, I love it. Love it. Um, and the last thing I want to talk about was Blackhawks. And there's not a ton going on, but uh, one is I know there's a lot of talk about the impending free agency of Mitch Marner. And the Blackhawks have a ton of money and a desperate need for talent. I don't know if Mitch Marner makes sense for the Blackhawks. Super talented guy. If you're going to spend a ton, maybe 15 million a year for 7 years or something ridiculous for him, and by the time you're good, like, is he the same guy? It just doesn't. I don't know if he's the right fit at the right time for this team.
Well, regardless of what we think he will or will not be for the Blackhawks in a theoretical sense, the indications seem to be that they're not going to be exploring that.
And I don't think they should. I'm kind of glad.
I'm just curious what they are going to do. There's been some rumblings about them trading up.
That was the other thing I was going to bring up. I said this a couple weeks ago, but um, I I was that's my other point is there's two tier one players in this draft. Um, and the one that fits the best for the Blackhawks is Michael Misa. And
Misa,
I
Misa.
I think his skill set and abilities match up really well with where the Blackhawks talents are. He would be your center two. And I think everything fits around him. And that would be a great asset and good timing because he's not going to spend a long time. He's probably going to start on the big squad at the season or come up, sometime in the season. He's going to be ready to go. Um, and after him, there's guys that are good, but they're definitely a tier below. Um, I know the Islanders, there's kind of pressure for them to draft Higgins, the kid from Long Island that grew up an Islanders fan. And he's a good player, but he's not a guy that you draft number one. Um, so do you, the so the real odds here, the Blackhawks could just stay pat and hope that they draft Higgins, and um, that way then they could either draft Matthew Schaefer, who's the defenseman that's probably the best player in this draft, um, or Michael Misa will fall to him. Um, so or you trade up with either the Islanders, where they could get assets back. You're the Blackhawks. You have a ton of assets. You have more than you can use. You can trade up to number one. The Islanders can go get Higgins, the center from Boston College, who is probably a top 5 player in this draft. You get him at number 3. You feel better. You get the Long Island kid, makes everybody happy, and you get draft capital to go along with it. And the Blackhawks get the Michael Misa. Or the Blackhawks could trade with the Sharks, move up one spot. I feel like they're less likely to. I think probably the easier pathway, because if you're the Sharks, like you're like, well, I'm going to get a lesser player. Whereas the Islanders are like, well, I'm going to get draft assets and I'm getting a guy that the fans want, and he's still a pretty good player. So I think the best option is the Blackhawks to move up to number one and get Michael Misa. And I think that is a win-win for both clubs, the Blackhawks, because, you know, you, you need at some point you can have a bunch of pretty good players, but you need a blue chip players to get to that next level. And Michael Misa is a blue chip player.
Yeah, and I mean, you have the assets to do it, like you said. So it's not like, hey, you're trying to force something that is clearly not going to happen. Cough, Bulls and Giannis cough, where it's like, oh, you do have money, you do have draft assets, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, you have pick 3, pick 25, pick 34, pick 62, pick 66. Like, you've got a ton of selections. Uh, is use them, trade up and get a blue chip player to plug away on this team that lines up with all of your other young players.
Yep.
So I'm really hoping they're able to do that. Like I said, is I don't know if San Jose, um, you know, is willing to trade because they're kind of in a similar boat. But I think you might be able to pry away the Islanders because they moved up so far that for them, this is like free money. The Sharks were the worst team. They need that top player. The Islanders, they were supposed to be like what, 10th? Um they, you're like, hey, it's found money. We could get still a really, really good player in James Higgins and get another first rounder. You could give up that 25 pick and uh and just to move down 2 spots. Like that seems doable. That seems like a much more doable option.
Hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I've said my piece.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe, however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. Have a grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or Swerski Sports_podcast on Instagram, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter/X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.